Diddy has been sued again, but this time for something a little different. He looks a little familiar, don't you think?
Pascal, you are now rocking with that dude Pascal.
What's up? Diddy has been sued again for the umpteenth time. Not really surprised. And honestly, I'm going to be real. I feel like we're going to be hearing about lawsuits with Diddy until 2026. That's literally what I think. As far as the filing of these lawsuits, they're just going to keep on filing out, keep on falling out slowly but surely. But this guy looks familiar, don't you think? Now, this is DeWitt Gilmore. He was on my show before he came on here, and shout out to News Nation, for bringing him on and helping tell his story. But he claims that he was attacked. There was a huge high-speed chase in the midnight streets of New York where he was being chased after Diddy and his goons. Pretty crazy stuff that we hear in that particular, in these allegations and what he's saying in this particular lawsuit. But now he's on Banfield, and I wanted to share it because, I think it's a very interesting and wild lawsuit, a wild story. But this time it's not about SA. It's about A, but it's not SA. And of course, he also had witnesses, guys. He had witnesses that were in the car with him that corroborate his story. In fact, go and check out my interview. One of his boys, one of the guys that was actually in the car, was recanting, basically saying the same thing, was singing the same song, saying, hey, yeah, we were getting chased by Diddy and his goons. It was absolutely terrifying. We didn't know what was going to happen. We were scared for our lives. It's some real stuff, guys. And that interview is on my main channel, so go check it out. He has a book as well, The Night Diddy Tried to, well, we got to use these code words, but unalive me or K me, all right? Pretty crazy stuff. But let's take a look at this because I think this is a very, very interesting interview. So we're going to watch this. Let's rock and roll.
It's good of you to be here. I really appreciate this. Thank you so much. First, take me back and tell me, what was your relationship back then with, well, I guess it was Puff Daddy back then. What was the relationship?
Well, Andre Harrell introduced me to him. Andre was an entertainer. Andre was a rapper. And I hired Andre on numerous occasions. And we were at a bar at a friend's nightclub, and Puffy comes up, and Andre says, hey, this is Puffy, my intern. And we have a lot of mutual friends. He's from Mount Vernon. I'm from Mount Vernon. And so we struck up some deals to do some parties, and specifically a basketball game, which everybody heard about, known as CCNY. Fortunately for me, he took that idea and went off on his own and did it. And we all know what happened because that's become part of his history, where people were stampeded and so on and so forth. So yeah, that was our relationship. It was parties, and he was trying to come into my parties, my events in Westchester, my nightclub events, and so.
Again, I got to cut in and out of here, but yes, as you could see here, he allegedly took the idea from DeWitt, went off, did his own fundraiser, like this basketball kind of fundraiser, and then there was a mass tragedy. And then he kind of had to hide away for a little while because of this mass tragedy. It's absolutely devastating for sure. But let's continue.
Well, yeah, that was.
It's bizarre hearing about P. Diddy as an intern, but I mean, these were the days. So go back to the incident, 1996, the night in question, as you're alleging, and tell me what happened.
So me and one of my interns and my security, I had a magazine at the time, as you showed, and we were heading through town to go downtown to pick up money at different clubs, restaurants, businesses that advertised in my publication. And one spot that we stopped at, they were giving out T-shirts. And I think it's important to mention this. They were giving out Death Row East T-shirts. They were trying to promote the forthcoming Death Row East record label and trying to unify the coasts. And so I threw the T-shirt on. I wasn't involved in the East Coast, West Coast thing, but I was wanting to support. And so we got down to a club called Downtime in downtown Manhattan, not far from Herald Square. And we go in. There's a line of people to get in the club. We go past the line. We go inside. It's a packed club. And when we came out of the club, it was when the streets were an hour later, the streets were mobbed. So there was a big party going on outside because they could not get in the club. We go across the street to where my car was parked. And I'm in the driver's seat. I had an Isuzu Trooper stick shift. Lance, who was my security, gets in the passenger seat. And my intern is in the back seat. And Puffy comes up beside my vehicle. He obviously saw me, saw the Death Row East t-shirt. And he pulled up beside me. He's in the passenger seat, and his bodyguard is the one driving. And so he took his bodyguard's instruction, and they pull up next to me. And basically, he goes, "What's up?" And so really quickly, I say, "Puff, like, keep your drama to yourself. I don't want nothing to do with whatever you got going on, man. We know your trouble, whatever." Nah, you. And so they let me out of the parking space, Ash, and we pulled out, assuming that that was as far as it was going to go. But that's not as far as it went. Lance says, "You know, he's following you." And I didn't think of it as a threat. Next thing you know, we're in front of Herald Square. It's about 1 a.m, and his bodyguard pulls his sports car and runs me off the road. So now I'm on an island, the trooper, and we get out of the vehicle. Lance gets out of the vehicle, but that's the moment we realized he was not alone. It was not just Puffy and bodyguard. There were 4 other cars. They were loaded with guys. The next thing I hear is pop,
Crazy.
pop, and then Lance says, "Gun, gun," and it's all going down at the same time. And for the life of me, how I got teleported out of that situation, I don't know.
I mean, listen, I mean, to even think that this was like on site like that is pretty crazy. I mean, it's unfortunate that, he's wearing a t-shirt that, of his rival. There's a lot that's going on in the situation to begin with. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're like, suddenly there's a start to attack. This is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying story.
But I jump back in my truck. Lance jumps back in the truck. I jump over the island. Now it's a hasty car chase. I'm on sidewalks. I'm going down one ways. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. There's not a lot of traffic, but the traffic that was there, I was able to basically escape this guy and his goons. That's what happened that night.
Now, imagine being in that kind of situation. You got Diddy and his goons running after you. They're all suited and booted. They're ready to do some serious damage. And you're just driving through the streets of New York trying to seek refuge. And, of course, I had a lot of questions when I interviewed him, too. It's kind of like you drove through the streets of New York in the middle of the night and cops weren't around, so on and so forth. He answers those questions, and I know that there's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of people that don't know if they believe what he is saying. But at the same time, I mean, if it was a different time. The New York is not the same New York like it was in the 90s. But at the same time, it does, make you wonder, how did no one see any of this, right? How there was no 911 calls made or anything like that. It's crazy.
It's an incredible account, and it's very detailed as well. So I'm assuming that you've included all of these details in the lawsuit. The only question I have for you, DeWitt, is that the statute of limitations on assault is usually about a year. How are you going to get past the fact that this is decades now? Good question.
Well, the way to bring a case into court past the statute of limitations, if you're not SA'd, sexually assaulted with the New York state laws, is new evidence. And as of recent, a few months ago, I'm in touch with, there were 2 people with me in the truck, by the way. And I have not had contact with them, but recently I was in touch with Lance Calfe. Lance Calfe was my security in the truck at the time. And so we've all been intimidated, quite frankly, by Puffy and his money, and his name changes and all of his his goons and security and his fan base. And so 2 things. Number 1, I got back in touch with Lance. He gave full testimony to the event that night. He's never given full testimony.
Wow.
Number 2, as I said, not just me, but many people have been intimidated by this guy's power and influence and his money, and not for nothing, but he could wipe me out in no time, with that much power. So I was afraid, to be honest with you. But ever since he's been locked up now we have the federal government on our side. We feel protected. We're no longer afraid. And I speak for all the victims, whether it's Cassie or Natanya Rubin or who got shot in the face by him or any of Diddy's victims. I'm here to speak out for them. So in terms of not coming forth, I just feel safe now to come forth and tell my story. And that's really what it is, just standing on my truth.
I think there's going to be a lot of people that are saying the same thing. A lot of victims, a lot of accusers that are stepping forward are now feeling comfortable now that Diddy's locked up, that they can actually step out and speak out on their behalf and speak out about their experiences. Still, even so, there's still a lot of potential victims and potential accusers and witnesses that are still hiding in plain sight right now because they still don't trust that Diddy doesn't have influence still out here in these streets. So it is interesting because for a fact there's a bunch of other people that have seen things. If all of these allegations are to be true, then that means that there are plenty of witnesses that saw things. And a lot of them haven't spoken out. A lot of them haven't stepped forward at all. Why? Because of fear of the diddler. Real talk, even while he's locked up. That's crazy. Indeed crazy.
Well, DeWitt, I'm really appreciative that you came on to talk to us exclusively about this. I hope you keep us posted on the status of the case. Will you do that?
Yes, and Ashley, not for nothing, but there are a lot of people at his parties, and some of the most influential people that we've seen on tape have been Kim Kardashian, have been Al Sharpton, have been T.D. Jakes. All of those people, including Ellen, have all been quiet. It's quiet even since Cassie's beatdown, but they're not speaking out now. They're not speaking out when, she was beaten up on CNN, for God's sakes. They're not speaking up. Everybody's hush. We have to decide if we're going to choose evil side or the good or the evil side. And for me, there's only the good side. So make up your minds, guys. Make up your minds. What are you going to do? You're going to stay quiet or you're going to speak up? This guy is a menace to society.
He named names, okay? This man named some mother-loving names, and I don't blame him for calling people out because it is true. Hollywood has been very, very quiet. It's been hush. Now, we've been hearing some things about Meek Mill trying to distance himself from the situation and all that too. Okay, fine. He's distancing himself, but he's not really making a statement. He's not sitting here saying, what happened and what's being alleged is deplorable. No one said anything. But he does have a point, calling out all of these high-profile celebrities that have, I'm sure, were in some sort of version of these freak-offs, whether they were a witness or they were partaking. None of them are speaking out. And that's some scary stuff. Really, it is. But it is interesting, this lawsuit, it is different than the other lawsuits that are out here that Diddy is accused of doing other things. This one is a high-speed car chase in the streets of Manhattan in the middle of the night. That's some crazy stuff. But what say you guys? What are your thoughts? Do you believe it? Do you think he's telling the truth or no? I got a lot of questions like I always do because I'm a inquisitive mother lover. But at the same time, to think that he got away, him and his friends got away by the skin of their teeth is really, really scary too. And I can only imagine what that night was like in 1996 in the streets of Manhattan in the middle of the night. Pretty scary stuff. Anyway, guys, that's the video. Comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Hit that like button down below. Crush that subscribe button, and we'll talk soon. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.
Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild.